Welcome to BYOFAQ, the unofficial FAQ for the workplace. I'm Felix Avery Quinn.
And I'm Bryce Oats. This is episode 2 of our 4-part DISC series. Today we're decoding the entertainer, the high I personality. Quick orientation. DISC is a way of describing how people operate at work, not who they are, how they show up when the pressure's on. 4 patterns.
Dominance, the commander drives action. Influence, the entertainer drives energy. Steadiness, the anchor drives stability. Conscientiousness, the architect drives precision. Most people are a blend, almost nobody is pure anything, but 1 or 2 of these usually run the room when the heat's on. That's what we're decoding.
Today, the entertainer.
Right, so imagine an employee who spends, I don't know, maybe 60% of their day just socializing.
Yeah, the ones who actively ignore your standard operating procedures.
Exactly, and they routinely leave these massive complex projects half-finished. But, and here's the catch, they're simultaneously the absolute most vital person to your team's survival.
It makes 0 sense on paper.
Right. That's the paradox of the high I. If you are listening to this, you likely work with someone who fits this exact description. Or, maybe you are managing one, and you're caught between wanting to promote them and wanting to pull your hair out.
I've been in that exact position.
Right.
Like many times.
Yeah.
As an operator, you look at a high I, and you just see a walking HR incident when it comes to process.
Oh, for sure. Process is not their thing.
But then you watch them walk into a room where morale is just completely dead. And within 10 minutes, the entire team is suddenly energized and ready to tackle a completely unreasonable deadline. They possess a kind of magic.
Which actually brings us to the mission for this deep dive, because if our previous analysis on the high D was all about the people who drive action and, hard results.
They're commanders.
Right, the commanders. Today is about understanding the people who drive the energy, the ones who lead with enthusiasm and connection. And the source material we are working with today is brilliant because it moves past those surface-level stereotypes and actually unpacks the anatomy of how they operate.
So let's start with the physical reality of just spotting them in the wild.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because, you don't have to guess if a high I is in the room. They make themselves known immediately. Verbally, they simply do not lead with data. When the building's on fire, or even just during a routine Tuesday sync, everything is presented as a narrative.
Yes. The trademark introduction to almost any thought they have is, you won't believe what happened.
Always. It's always a story.
Their natural operating frequency is dialed into the concept that whatever they are talking about is going to be amazing. And there is a biological reason for this, actually. High individuals are typically external processors.
Meaning they talk to think.
Exactly. They aren't sitting quietly formulating a perfect data-backed thesis before they open their mouths. They are generating the idea by speaking it out loud.
The vocal variety totally gives that away. It's off the charts. Like the pitch goes up, the volume drops for dramatic effect, the pace accelerates.
It's very theatrical.
Highly. And physically, they take up a lot of space. I noticed they hold eye contact significantly longer than necessary.
Oh yeah, they really lock in on you.
Right. Like if they're in a boardroom, they aren't just staring at the person with the whiteboard marker. They are making direct eye contact with every single person around that table, scanning for reactions. They move. They use whole body gestures. They physically tap your arm to pull you into the dialogue.
And that physical warmth, it bleeds directly into their written communication as well.
Oh, the emails.
Yes, the emails. If you get an email or a Slack message from a high I, you're going to see a literal flood of exclamation points.
So many exclamation points.
And emojis. It is never a cold transaction for them. It's never just, status of the Peterson account. It's always, hey, how are things with the Peterson account? I know you were worried about the timeline last week.
They always remember the details.
Right. They operate on the fundamental assumption that a warm relationship already exists with you.
Which brings up a verbal habit that used to drive me absolutely crazy before I understood this framework.
The interrupting.
The constant interrupting. The sources point out that a high I will frequently talk over you to build on your idea or just interject their own story. My default operator instinct is that interrupting a sentence is a power play. It's hostile. It says, my time is more valuable than yours.
See, right, but the interesting piece here is the underlying mechanism. Because for a high I, that interruption is the exact opposite of hostility.
It sure doesn't feel that way.
I know, but it's an indicator of peak engagement. They aren't cutting you off to shut you down. Their brain is permanently wired in this improvisational yes and framework. When you are speaking, their brain is just lighting up, making spontaneous connections, and they literally cannot contain the excitement of sharing that connection with you.
So they're just getting ahead of the car. They hear the first half of my sentence, assume the second half, and launch into the next logical step.
Think about Lorelai Gilmore.
From the show.
Yeah, from Gilmore Girls. The dialogue in that show is impossibly fast, right? And she is constantly talking over people.
She really is.
But it's never because she's trying to dominate the town meeting. It's because she is intensely electrically excited about the connection she just made. When you finish a thought, high I immediately sees the next link in the chain. It's pure excitement.
Okay, that distinction changes how you manage them. But that level of constant physical and verbal energy, I mean, it isn't spontaneous. It requires massive amounts of fuel.
Right.
So if we look under the hood, what is actually powering the high I engine?
The research isolates 3 core motivators. You've got recognition, social connection, and variety.
Let's hit recognition first.
Let's unpack it because it's deeply misunderstood. We all assume everyone likes being told they did a good job, you know. But for a high I, public credit matters far more than a quiet financial reward.
I've learned that the hard way. I really have.
Oh yeah, do tell.
Early in my career, I had a high I sales rep who just crushed her quarter. I mean, blew the numbers out of the water. So I pulled her into my office, closed the door, gave her a very nice bonus check, and said a quiet thank you.
Oh no, in a closed office.
Yeah. 2 weeks later, her performance tanked, and she seemed completely disengaged. I didn't understand it. I paid her.
What you missed, Bryce, is the social standing validation.
Yeah, I know that now.
For a high I, the bonus check is nice, sure, but the stage is the actual reward. If you slip them an envelope in a closed room, nobody else knows their value. They want you to stand up in front of the entire floor and say, hey team, we couldn't have hit our Q3 targets without this person.
They want the applause.
Exactly. That public validation confirms their social capital within the tribe because to them, work is fundamentally a social exercise. The shared experience of achieving the goal matters just as much as the spreadsheet outcome.
Which ties directly into that third motivator, variety. The source material uses a very dramatic phrase here.
It really does.
It calls repetition soul death for a high I.
Soul death.
Doing the same thing the same way every day is literal torture for this personality type.
And the dopamine cycle explains that perfectly. High I brains crave novelty. They get chemical rewards from new people, new challenges, and new environments.
So routine is essentially starving them.
Exactly. If you take an entertainer and trap them in a highly repetitive task,
Like data entry.
yeah, say auditing expense reports every Friday for 6 months, you are starving them of their primary fuel source. It's a guarantee that they will become bored, their error rate will skyrocket, and they will eventually quit.
Handing them a repetitive spreadsheet isn't just a poor management choice. It's essentially workplace punishment.
It really is.
But when you align their tasks with their drive for novelty and connection, their true superpower comes online. They make people actually want to show up to the office.
Because they possess a staggering amount of social capital. Since they spend so much time investing in the personal lives of their coworkers, they know everyone.
Oh, they know everyone's business.
Right. They know who to call in IT to get a favor. They know the receptionist's kids' names. They open doors. But beyond that, it's the infectious enthusiasm.
I've watched a high ad take a Tuesday afternoon status meeting that felt like a slow funeral march, and within 5 minutes, turn it into an energized war room.
Yes, they have that exact skill.
When a project is dragging and a team is physically and emotionally flagging, this is the person who can talk everyone back into believing the goal is achievable.
And the fascinating thing is that their belief often becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because they make the relationships feel so real and so vibrant, the work itself begins to feel meaningful to the rest of the team. They are literally the human battery for workplace morale.
That's the sunny side of the street, though.
True.
It's fantastic when morale is high and the numbers look good. But as an operator, my job is usually dealing with things when they fall apart.
When the pressure hits.
Right. I want to shift to the dark side of the moon. What happens to the high I when the building is actually on fire?
It gets incredibly complicated. Because their baseline is verbal, when the stakes go up and the pressure mounts, a high I's instinct is to talk even more. The external processing just goes into overdrive.
I've seen that. They immediately lean into their network. Instead of looking at the data to solve the crisis, they start making calls. Let me call Sarah. She knows a guy in logistics.
Yeah, but the blind optimism kicks in aggressively here too. In a crisis, they tend to overcommit. They see 10 possible solutions and they tell 10 different stakeholders, don't worry, we got this.
It's exhausting just watching it.
The visual there is striking. They are essentially spinning 10 plates, smiling brightly, shouting, "We got this," to the entire room, while completely ignoring the psychological reality that 3 of those plates are already shattering on the floor behind them.
So why do they ignore the broken plates? I mean, is it just a refusal to accept reality?
It's a survival mechanism, really, rooted in their fear of social disconnection. They want so desperately to be the hero who saves the day and maintains the positive emotional environment.
So they just pretend everything is fine.
If a situation is genuinely dire, facing that truth means admitting failure, which they equate with social rejection. So they will highlight the one positive metric in a report to avoid confronting the 10 massive red flags. It isn't malicious dishonesty. It is simply blind protective optimism.
That protective instinct must create chaos during a conflict. Like when people are actually arguing in a room, how does the entertainer respond?
They despise it. Tension is their absolute kryptonite. When conflict emerges, a high, I will sacrifice almost anything to smooth it over and restore harmony.
Even if the harmony is fake.
Oh, especially then.
Yeah.
They will appeal directly to the relationship. They'll say, "Hey, I value you so much. Let's not let this spreadsheet issue be a thing between us." Or they will deflect with humor.
Chandler Bing from Friends.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, absolute classic example. The second the emotional tension in a room gets too high, suddenly there's the sarcastic joke to break the ice.
A perfect parallel, yeah. Chandler uses humor as a shield. We're just seeing this differently, but we're good, right? They prioritize the safety of the relationship over being right, which, sounds lovely in theory, but in a business context, it's dangerous.
Because sometimes the conflict is strictly necessary. If a team is arguing over a critical structural flaw in a product before launch, that friction has to be worked through. You can't joke your way out of a faulty product.
Exactly the danger. A high I will aggressively change the subject to regain that connected feeling, leaving the actual fundamental problem unsolved.
And if the conflict does somehow stay unresolved?
The high I internalizes it as a catastrophic social failure. They assume the relationship is permanently damaged. They hear a professional disagreement about a timeline and translate it internally to, "You don't like me anymore."
Wow.
Yeah, they require massive amounts of reassurance that a debate over strategy isn't a personal rejection.
Which naturally brings us to their blind spots.
Right.
From a management perspective, follow-through is the massive, glaring issue.
The wake of half-done projects.
Yes. They get incredibly energized by the shiny new idea, but they abandon it the moment the execution phase gets tedious.
And this goes back to the dopamine loop we discussed earlier. High I is get their chemical reward from the ideation phase and the social validation of pitching the idea.
The fun part.
Right, the actual unglamorous execution.
You're writing the documentation, cleaning up the CRM.
Establishing the standard operating procedures. All of that offers absolutely zero social dopamine. To a high I, doing the back-end process work feels like being buried alive. There is no audience. There is no energy.
Another massive blind spot is how they exhaust the rest of the team. They vastly underestimate how much stability other people require.
Oh, this is huge.
Earlier, you mentioned the 4 DISC types. A high S, your steady anchor, or a high C, your detail-obsessed architect, is going to be completely drained by the high I.
The tension between those types is immense. Like a high C architect teammate thrives on process, documentation, and predictability, right?
Right.
So when the high I constantly pivots, changes the plan based on a gut feeling, and completely ignores the established process, the high C is the one left cleaning up the mess.
It's a nightmare for them.
The entertainer thinks they are keeping things agile and fun, while the architect feels like they are babysitting a tornado.
So putting all this on the table, the brilliant enthusiasm, the ability to generate social capital out of thin air, but also the chaotic blind spots, the conflict avoidance, and the lack of follow-through.
It's a lot.
It is. And it brings us to the most practical part of this deep dive, the operator's manual.
My favorite part.
If you are listening to this, how do you actually manage, delegate to, or report to a high I without crushing their spirit?
Well, it starts with communication. The source material is very clear on this. You have to build the relational infrastructure first. When you bring them information, you must highlight the human impact, not just the raw outcome.
See, in the military and in high-stakes operations, we use a concept called BLUF.
Bottom line up front.
Bottom line up front, exactly. You don't bury the lead. You hit people with the most critical data immediately so they can act. This new software improves efficiency by 15%. Done. Move on. Are you saying I can't use BLUF with an entertainer?
You can use the data, Bryce, but if you lead with a cold, hard BLUF, you will absolutely lose them.
Why? Data is data.
Because you don't just walk up and drop a metric on their desk. You have to translate that 15% efficiency into a human story. You say, this new software frees up 15% of our time, which means Sarah finally has the bandwidth to tackle that brand redesign she's been wanting to do. You must connect the spreadsheet to a beating heart.
I'm going to challenge that. Hard.
I thought you might.
As an operator, starting a critical metrics meeting by asking, how was your weekend? Or framing data around someone's feelings feels like wasting valuable time when we need to put out a fire. Why should the entire management structure have to bend to accommodate their need for small talk?
Because you are miscategorizing what small talk is to them. Yes. This is a fundamental paradigm shift for operators. For a high I, small talk isn't delaying the work. Building the relational connection is the work. It is the invisible infrastructure that allows everything else to function.
So if I skip the pleasantries and just give them the objective data,
they don't hear your efficiency, they hear personal rejection.
Just from skipping small talk.
Yes. If they feel relationally disconnected from you, they shut down, you lose their energy, you lose their creative problem solving, and ultimately you lose them as an employee. Taking 2 minutes to ask about their weekend is the absolute cheapest investment you can make to guarantee you get their best work for the next 8 hours.
I guess I can accept building the infrastructure if it gets results.
It does.
But once that's established, how do I delegate tasks effectively so I don't end up micromanaging a tornado?
You give them the ultimate goal, you explain the emotional or social why behind it, you grant them autonomy to solve it their way, and then you firmly get out of their way.
Give them the outcome needed, not the 47-step checklist on how to get there. I've found that if you micromanage a high I, you instantly extinguish their spark. I used to try to force them onto rigid daily reporting schedules. It was a disaster.
I can imagine.
I learned you have to let them check in organically. If you give them the space to find their own connections, they will often surprise you with a highly creative solution you would never have found via a rigid process.
Which brings up the most sensitive part of the operator's manual.
Feedback.
Feedback. Because they take criticism so personally, how do you course correct an entertainer without them assuming you hate them and are about to fire them?
I imagine the BLUF approach fails spectacularly here as well.
It completely crashes and burns. Think of giving a high I feedback, like trying to install a critical software update on a laptop where the battery is completely dead.
It won't work.
It doesn't matter how important the software is, the machine cannot process it. For a high I, their battery is their social standing with you. If you launch straight into constructive criticism, their battery dies instantly. They panic, they feel rejected, and the feedback just bounces off.
So I have to plug them in first.
Precisely. It has to be affirming first. You have to actively remind them of their value to the team before you deliver the critique. And when you do critique, it must be highly specific to their impact, never their character.
So instead of saying, you talk way too much in meetings, tone it down.
Right, because that attacks who they are. Their defense mechanisms will shoot straight up. Instead, you address the behavioral impact. You say, in the Tuesday strategy meeting, you held the floor for 60% of the time, and I noticed Sarah couldn't get her engineering update out. Your ideas were great, but next time, let's try a round-robin format so everyone gets airtime.
It's specific and actionable.
It focuses on team growth, it's private, and it's warm. If you deliver tough feedback enveloped in genuine care, a high I will absolutely take it to heart.
What if the dynamic is reversed, though? What if you were listening to this and you realize your boss, the person you report up to, is a high I entertainer?
Oh, that's a great question. You manage up by leading with people wins. When you report your quarterly numbers, you don't just slide a spreadsheet across the desk.
No BLUF there either, I'm guessing.
Nope. You say, we hit the Q3 numbers, and everyone on the team feels like they grew their skill sets doing it. That combination is literal music to an entertainer's ears.
So you engage their strategic conversational mind.
Yes. Ask for their input on big picture ideas. Don't just read data to them. Explain how the specific work you're doing connects to the broader narrative of the company.
Everything we've covered today really points back to their core wiring. For a high I, relationships and results are permanently, inextricably intertwined. You cannot separate them.
You really can't.
The ultimate goal for anyone working with an entertainer isn't to dampen their enthusiasm or, force them to act like a detail-obsessed architect.
Yeah.
It's to help them pair that incredible reality-altering energy with actual, tangible follow-through.
Because they need to learn that it is possible to be the person who energizes the entire team and the person who actually finishes the project.
It is possible.
But as a teammate, an operator, or a leader, you have to recognize their specific genius, their core gift. The ability to make a room full of stressed out people feel seen, valued, and excited to tackle impossible work is completely irreplaceable.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to chew on.
Yeah, we spent this entire deep dive analyzing how the high I spends their days, making everyone else in the office feel seen, valued, and energized. They are the ones initiating the personal connections, remembering the birthdays.
Checking in on your family.
Exactly, and lifting the team when morale is in the absolute basement.
But emotional labor is a finite resource.
It really is. So if the high I is the battery powering the entire team's morale, who is making sure the high I feels seen and recharged when the work is done?
Something to think about the next time you see your team's entertainer hiking everyone up. Until next time.